Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for being here today, this morning, at this press conference. I want to thank all of the members that have shown up. You see by our buttons, there is a common theme that we're going to be talking about today. You know, in 2009 was the last time the Senate passed a budget. And the estimate of CBO at that time for the 2011 deficit was going to be $693 billion. And it turned out in 2011 to be $1.3 trillion. So, you know, for 1,000 days, the Senate has taken their hands off the steering wheel. 1,000 days. Think about what's occurred within 1,000 days. I've had 2 kids graduate from college, 2 kids go off to war and return home. 1 kid get married. So much has happened, and the Senate just doesn't have a plan, doesn't have a budget plan, and has just stayed away from their responsibilities to govern in this great country. The president's new slogan really shouldn't be, we can't wait. It ought to be, we can't wing it anymore. And we need the Senate to act. Once again, I want to thank all my colleagues here. You heard their stories, some very personal, but here's our hope, is that tonight, when the president speaks at the State of the Union, that he calls upon the Senate to do their obligation to the American people. Don't just select the House Representatives and run against us. How about talking about the Senate and the lack of action within the Senate? And you saw the cards, over 28 job bills that have been passed bipartisan job bills that have had nothing, no action, nothing at all. So, Mr. President, call upon Harry Reid to do his constitutional responsibility, to follow suit and pass a budget, to have discussion about those things that could create jobs in America, not be the obstructionist that the Senate has been and has continued to be. We need to change course in America. Thank you very much for your attendance. Any questions at all? I think it's pretty simple and pretty
Never
plain.
seen Chad so quiet.
Well, in that case, I'll jump in here. I know what the issue is with the budget here, and several of you talked about blueprints and things. But isn't the problem, to a degree, with the appropriations process? I realize that the budget sets you a blueprint, but you know, again, that's where the money is actually spent, and it's not. Budgets are not binding.
And you're absolutely right. There's no by law, there's no authority within the budget itself, but the budget does set the blueprint. To have a discussion about how we want to go forward on the appropriations aspect, I do believe you have to have a foundation to build on, and we just haven't received that working with the Senate. If you can't even come up with a budget that you can agree upon, how do you ever come up with appropriation bills that you can agree upon? Because I think that's the foundation.
Do you think if the Senate had marked up a budget, which would have been very different than the Ryan budget, that would have made this appropriations process this year, which nearly resulted in a government shutdown, easier?
Well, I think that if you go back, the way we're doing things in 2-month incremental by CRs or omnibus is we need to get back to regular order, so we actually do pass 12 appropriation bills. And that's the goal, I believe, of this Congress and of my colleagues, is that we get back to regular order and to pass 12 appropriation bills. To do that, I think you have to have buy-in from the House and the Senate, and obviously from the President. At the end of the day, he has the opportunity to either sign or veto. So we need to make sure that we move forward in a way that we get our job done, because that's what the American people are upset about, I believe, is the total inaction. And you have one House trying to work its will, and you have 2 other levers of government that are sitting there with their arms crossed, saying we're just not going to listen to you, and we're not even going to debate it, and we're not even going to compromise with the stance of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Considering how hard it's been to get things done, though, in the past year, under what scenario do you actually see a budget passing the House and passing the Senate and going to the President and being signed?
Well, I don't think, unless you try, I don't think it'll ever happen. And the problem has been is that it has just run off the cliff when it goes over to the Senate. They overwhelmingly turned down the President's budget. They didn't even take up ours, and at the end of the day, they didn't produce a thing. And I don't believe that you can have any movement until you start to have some dialogue between all those levers of government.